This conference will now be recorded.
Get started. So in the last session, we have covered how we can able to create a servers, EC2 servers, Linux and Windows servers, how we can create and how to connect to those servers from our laptop that we have discussed. One is EC2, and then IAM also we
Funny,
have
I'm not
discussed.
audible. Are you speaking? Is it only with me?
Uh, Rest of the people, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, Sunny.
Yes, Vanessa.
Yeah, Kamal, I think problem is your side. Can you rejoin?
Okay, let me join again. I think I'm having issue with audio.
So we covered EC2 service and IAM service yesterday. So just today we will find some more topics in IAM which we will help in our DevOps course, and some basic Linux commands which are helpful for us on our daily basis of DevOps. So once we joined, also we have to monitor a couple of the resources and all. So as per that, we have to know a couple of Linux commands so that we are going to cover in today's session. So tomorrow we'll start our first DevOps tool. So is it audible, Kamal, now? Kamal, are you able to hear me now? Yeah, guys, we'll start. We'll continue. He can go to the recording if he missed something. So today we are going to cover one more service that is called S3. So how we can able to use S3. S3 is nothing but simple storage service, which will be helpful to storage some object level information, some object type of information that we can able to store in S3. Means that in EC2, we can able to attach a disk actually, so that we can attach and detach, and we can attach to some other server. And wherever the size is not sufficient, we can increase and decrease the disk and all. We can do that one. So in S3, so we can store unlimited amount of data. So here we have to keep on increase the size and all whenever it is not sufficient the disk, or we have to create an additional disk. Okay. So those things we have to do whenever the data disk or data volume is not sufficient. But in S3, it doesn't require that we have to keep on increase and all. It will automatically it doesn't require that we have to define our space or size in advance. We can go and store unlimited amount of data over here. So how we can able to create an S3 bucket? So the content we are putting inside one container that is called bucket. We can call that as bucket. And the content, whatever we are putting inside S3, that those are called objects. Okay. So the data that we are keeping inside S3, that we are calling it as an object. Let's see how we can create an S3 bucket and how to access that S3 bucket content from the EC2 server. Okay. So let me go and create one EC2 server and create an S3 bucket. Open S3 and EC2 both. Yeah. So this is my EC2 console. Yesterday we have seen how to launch an instance. So quickly let me launch one more instance for today's session. I think this is the new console. Let me go to the old console. See, I want to create a, let's say, a Ubuntu server. So you can select any one of the AMI which is related to Ubuntu here and just proceed with the default values. I don't want to get change anything. So just click on the review and launch button and launch the key what you want to use to create your instance. Bash 11D is the key pair. Let me click on launch instance. So one Linux server, Ubuntu server will be bring up. It will take some time to comes to running state. Once it comes to running state, we can connect to that server via public IP with the help of putty. Okay, so that we will see. So meanwhile, let me log into S3 console. So this is the S3 console will look like this, and here we can able to store and retrieve any amount of data from anywhere. Okay, so kind of some object storage service that offers scalability and the data availability and security. Scalability means we can able to scale. So any amount of data, large amount of data that we can able to store, it can able to support, and it will try to maintain the data high available so that there won't be any downtime to retrieve the data kind of thing. Because in the background, AWS will maintain our data at multiple locations, at multiple availability zones. If something goes wrong to the one data center also, so they will try to maintain the same data across multiple availability zones within the region. So we'll see what is meant by regions and availability zones if you want. So regions are nothing but the geographic locations where AWS maintained their data center. Suppose let's say in India, Mumbai is the one region. For example, in India, AWS has their data centers in Mumbai location. So inside the Mumbai, so they will maintain multiple data centers actually. How it will be. So those are called availability zones. Availability zones. So we can call them as AGs. We can call them as AGs as well. So availability zones are nothing but actual data centers where they have created inside the Mumbai region. So inside Mumbai, maybe North Mumbai, one data center, South Mumbai, maybe one data center. So something like that at different locations within the Mumbai itself, they will try to maintain multiple data centers. If something goes wrong to in one data center, so it won't affect the customers which are deployed their applications on Amazon cloud. They won't get affected. So for that reason, they will try to maintain the content of the S3 that we are uploading, so will be placed across multiple availability zones within the region. So just I'm taking an example of Mumbai. Suppose if it is a US specific one, there is a North Virginia data center is there. There is a California data center is there, and Ohio is there. Oregon is there. So like the different regions are there. Within the regions, there are different availability zones or the data centers will be maintained. So if you want to see that regions list, here you can see these are the regions. US East, North Virginia, Ohio, North California, Oregon, Cape Town, Hong Kong. So like that Singapore, multiple things are there. These are called the regions. So within these regions, different availability zones will be maintained. Okay. So while creating the bucket, you have to decide or you have to select which region you want to place your content or you want to place your bucket. See here, which region you want to create. It's up to you. So let me create a bucket, which is called S3 bucket. I'll give the name as batch 11D sample bucket. So here you can see the name. I want to create my bucket in North Virginia region. I want to create my bucket in North Virginia region. So North Virginia region, you can have the name of US East 1. Okay. Similarly, for other regions, there will be US East 1, US East 2, like that. Here the naming convention, if you see, North Virginia 1, you can call it as US East 1. So similarly, Ohio 1, you can call it as US East 2. So like that US West 1, US West 2, like that naming conventions are there. So now I want to create my S3 bucket in this AWS region. So here you can scroll down just to verify what permissions are there on that bucket. Suppose, let's say, by default, whenever you are creating an S3 bucket, it will select this checkbox, which is called block all public access. Means that everyone, they can't able to access the content which is placed inside my S3 bucket. So this is nothing but just I'm blocking the public access. So everyone can't able to access. Whoever created this S3 bucket, so they can able to access. Other than that, if anyone granted some permission via IAM, okay, suppose I created an IAM user, and for that IAM user, if I granted some permission so that they can able to access the S3 bucket content. Okay, for now, let me proceed as it is. I don't want to get change anything. And there is a concept of versioning is there, bucket versioning. Bucket versioning is nothing but if you enable this versioning, so whenever you are trying to override the file inside the S3 bucket, so it will keep the older versions as well as the newer version as well. Suppose, let's say, with the same file name, let's say test sample.txt, for example, one text file I have uploaded to one of the S3 bucket. So it has some content. Maybe I want to add some additional content and I have uploaded the same file once again. So then actually, if this bucket versioning is not enabled, if it is in disabled state, what will happen? It will try to keep only the latest version of the file. Suppose if you enable this versioning, so it will keep the older version as well as the newer versions also. All the versions of the file will be tries to maintain if we enable the bucket version. Okay. So if you want, you can keep this bucket versioning enabled. So usually in the organizations, if that is really important bucket and there is some production content and all will be maintained, at the time they will enable the bucket version. For remaining all the buckets, they don't want to store some versions and all. At the time, they will not enable. Okay. So you can able to add some tags so that you can just say what is the environment of this bucket, which content you are storing, whether it is a development environment or whether it is a testing environment or production environment. So like that, the content of type what you are storing and which team it belongs to, let's say. Like that, you can add multiple tags, whatever you want. Let's say some team A, but usually we can provide whatever the team you are belongs to. And there are some options which will help us to encrypt the data that we are storing inside S3. If you want, go with that encryption, so that there are two options are there, which is provided. One is provided by AWS S3 itself, and other one which is AWS KMS. There is a separate services there which is called KMS, which is called Key Management Service. So that will help us to encrypt the data and to decrypt the data which are presented in S3. Okay. For now, let's proceed with this option disable and let's click on create bucket. And one more thing, while just you are creating a bucket, if any bucket is already created with this name that you have created, it won't allow us to create. The naming convention should be unique. So no one created any bucket with that particular name earlier. If someone created, it won't create a bucket for you. Okay, it will show that you have to use some different name. So currently, if you click on that bucket, so you can see there are no objects are there. Currently, there are no objects are there inside my S3 bucket. You can able to upload some content from over here. You can create some folders and inside the folders, you can place some content if you want. Otherwise, directly from here, you can place some content. Let me try to upload some sample file. Let me click on add files. I don't have. I don't have any small files. Let me check my downloads. Okay, the batch 11 did this file I am uploading, for example. Batch 11 did this key pair is there, right? Just I am trying to upload that file and click on upload button. Now you can see my file got uploaded. But if you click on this file, okay, if you open that file, you will get some link to access the file. Okay, so this is called that object URL. So if you share this one with everyone, or if someone who don't have the AWS account and all, if I share, so they can't able to access. Okay, so let me try. They'll get some exception, and I'll also get that exception. If I try to access that object URL, I'll get some exception saying that access denied. So if I want to access the object with the help of this object URL, so that you have to modify the permission. Okay, so currently at the bucket level, we have blocked that public access, right? So currently I am at the bucket level, and if you go to the permissions tab, so you can see the block public access is on. So you don't want to do that one. Let me uncheck this one and save the changes. So you have to type confirm to update the permissions or to update the permissions related, access related changes. You have to type confirm. Once you confirm that one, now you can go and see. Let me try to refresh. So currently I have just allowed, I didn't block the public access at the bucket level, but along with the bucket level, at the object level also, there is a, just go to the object, just select that object, go to the actions. There will be some option to make that as public. Let me check that one. Let me open that object. Inside that also we can see that permissions tab. And here you can see, give me a minute. I should able to see the permissions button. So they will keep on add some new options actually. Okay. So maybe earlier I am not able to see these additional checksums. So something like new features they will always try to implement, but whichever it is required for you, I'm just covering that part. So if you want to enable the bucket versioning, so you can click on this one so that it will try to keep the multiple versions of that particular object. From there I can see that made public. I think this option is disabled. I don't know why. So, but if I use this open button directly here, you can see some open button is there, right? If I click on that one, the file will get downloaded. see batch11d.ppk file will get downloaded. If you click on download or if you try to open that particular file, so it is getting downloaded my file into my local. So you can able to access that particular object via this URL actually. But let me some permission still it is expecting. So we can able to make that at the
There is a button, right? Copy URL. Will that work?
the copy URL is there. Don't see earlier I can see this permission.
Copy S3 URL is there, right? Is it different?
This one also we can't able to access. So this one will be helpful just whenever you want to copy the object from one bucket to another bucket or from your laptop, local laptop to S3 bucket. At the time, it will be helpful. So it won't help us via browser to access. So via browser, the object URL will be helpful, but we have to make that bucket or make that object as public. But I don't see why this option is disabled, but this is the option. Actually, we can able to make that object as public using ACL. Let me, yeah, I think some additional option they have enabled over here. So I think now I can able to access. Let me check. Here you can see the earlier this button is disabled. Why? Because earlier we have directly this button will be enabled, but I think they have added one more field which we can enable or disable this bucket access control list. There is a ACL is there. ACL is nothing but access control list. So that they have disabled that option. So now I enable that option so that I can able to control whether I want to make my object enable or disable. So means that I can able to allow that object so that everyone can able to read. Here you can see that so that if someone wants to read my object so that they can able to read. But I don't want to provide for everyone means I have the control so that a particular persons who has their if anyone who has the AWS account that I can able to do, or if only one account I want to share with, okay. Suppose let's say you have one AWS account and I want to share that object with you, that is also possible. Means that a group of persons who has the AWS account, or let's say for everyone, are only that bucket owner or the object are your AWS account. Okay, only the users within your AWS account. Like that, multiple options are there. For now, let me make it as public for everyone so that just I want to see from here, just you can able to grant the object access to some other AWS accounts. Just you have to provide some account instead of account ID, they will use some canonical ID like this. Okay, so you need to get that canonical ID from different AWS account that you have to add that ID over here to grant that object permission to some other AWS account. Now I have changed my permission and you can see the access of the object is showing public, so that I can able to let me copy the older object that we have let me open my bucket and let me open my object and copy that object URL. Now you can able to open that file. I can't. Let me make object as public. Yes. Yeah, I think now I can. See, these files actually .ppk files, right? So directly it is downloading. But earlier it is not allowing me to download, right? But whenever I refresh, so the file is downloading, means we have the access to open that particular file. So you can download and you can open that file. But if you upload some text file kind of thing, okay, so you can able to access that file. If you want that, just try to save this file. Let me save this text file, whichever I have written, text file or any other file. Suppose let me save this file as s3.txt in my desktop. The content, whatever I have noted down in my notepad till now. Let me try to upload that file. So let me click on upload, add files in my desktop, s3.txt. So once my file got uploaded, I can able to, let me try to access the object initially without modifying any permissions. Let me try to open that object. At the time I am getting access denied, right? But let me try to make or modify the permissions. Manage public using ACL, and here I want to make my object as public. Let me do that and go to that URL and try to refresh that URL once again. You can see the content you can able to access via browser itself. Okay, some files which it doesn't support via browser to open, it will try to download that file. Okay, so this is how you can able to manage the permissions, whether you want to allow the object should be accessible by outside people also. If you share that URL with them, that content, the public content, you can able to keep in S3, and you can share that object URL. So it doesn't require that we have to grant, or let's say I have to create a IAM user for that particular person, and I have to grant that S3 permission to him so that he can come to that S3 bucket and access this one. It doesn't require. So really, if you want to grant that public access to a particular object, so that object URL you can able to share with them. So this is how you can able to control the permissions at the object level, a specific object that I want to make it as public, that I can do. Other than that, at bucket level also, whether you want to restrict that particular all the objects, whether I can allow or I don't want to allow, that things I can do it. So additional to that one, there is a bucket policies there inside S3, so which will be helpful to uh, control the access, maybe based on some IP range. Let's say only these group of IP addresses, whoever logged into my, whoever logged into trying to access the S3 content, or S3 content which is presented in my S3 bucket. So if they are belongs to a set of IP addresses, then only it will allow. Suppose if they are not belongs to the set of IP addresses, it won't allow them to access the S3 content. This is how IP-based restriction is also possible inside the bucket policies. Means some additional control is there, whether based on IP range or based on access content. Okay, inside the bucket, maybe a specific folder I want to block accessing outside world, a specific folder I want to make it as public. So all those things that we can able to control here. So we have to create a bucket policy, so which is in the form of JSON format. So for that, there is a bucket policy generator is there. We can use that one to create the bucket policy. Let me... So now my intention of discussing this S3 is I want to access my content from EC2 servers. How I can able to access the data which is presented in S3. Okay. So I created an EC2 instance. Let me log into my EC2 instance. From there, I will try to connect to my content. So let me open Putty, and the server username is Ubuntu @ public IP. So now I have opened my file. See, my file got open. Now I have connected with my Ubuntu server. Okay. So we'll see how we can able to access our S3 content. Suppose let's say uh, two things I will discuss. One thing is if I am accessing my S3 content via Windows laptop, how it will work, and via Linux laptop. So Windows laptop, I'll use my personal laptop only. I don't want to create again and again the AWS Windows laptop. And for Linux example, I'll use my Ubuntu server, which I have created. Okay. So via Windows laptop, if I want to access my S3 means there are two ways. One way is via directly console, AWS Amazon console. We can log in, and via UI you can able to access the data. You can upload, you can download, you can open, you can delete, you can do whatever you want. Okay. So if you have the permission to that access to that S3, that you can able to do it. Suppose there is another way of accessing S3 is there, that is called command line interface, CLI. So first way is called console, management console, we can call it as. So means that via UI we can able to access. The second way is called CLI. CLI is nothing but command line interface, means like kind of programmatic access. Okay. So command line interface. So via UI, how to access we have seen. Now we are going to discuss about via CLI how to access. So if you want to work with CLI, first you need to download. There is a software which is called AWS CLI. Okay. So once you downloaded that one, so you have to authenticate yourself. You have the proper authentication to your AWS account. Suppose if I want to log into my console means what I am using. So daily I am using my username and password, right? Let's say my username is some mail ID and some password to log into my console. Similarly, to access the AWS account via CLI, you need an access key and then some secret key. These two things are required. So while creating the IAM user itself, we have the control, right? Whether we are providing the console access or the programmatic access. So yesterday we have discussed that concept. Let me open duplicate window and there I'll open IAM. Uh, Let me open IAM service. We need an access key and secret key. So let me see. There are no access key and secret key currently, but there is a root user we are daily login, right? Suppose let's say I am daily login with some root user, some mail ID and password. So if you need to get the access key and secret key for that root user, you can able to get it somewhere. They will maintain, I think, in dashboards or setting page. Let me check those things. Otherwise, in the from here, okay, in your profile page, there is a security credentials option is there. You can click on that one. It will take you to that page where you can get your access key and secret key. Yeah. So my root password, whenever I want to change, I should come to here. Okay. You can click on that profile page and go to security credentials. So all the root user credentials will be maintained over here. See your security credentials, the password, and suppose let's say there is a MFA. MFA is nothing but multi-factor authentication. You can link your AWS account with your mobile by downloading some app, and once it is linked with that, a OTP will be generated on the mobile app. You have to enter that OTP along with your username and password daily to log in, right? So you need to enter some OTP which is generated on the mobile. So it will keep on generating a new OTP for every 30 seconds kind of thing. So that you have to enter some latest OTP whenever you are trying to log into your AWS account. Without that OTP or MFA, you can't able to log into your account. So that is some security wise, if it is required in the organizations, they will enforce that you should use this MFA. So for now, our task is we have to use this access key and secret key. We need some access key and secret key to access my uh, content presented in S3 via CLI. Okay, for that here I can see my access key, but I can't see my secret key. Okay, so what I can do, I can delete this set of credentials and I can create another set of credentials if I want. I can make it as deactivate. Then you can copy that access key and I can paste it over here so that it will show my delete button so that the credentials I can able to delete it. Okay, so now I can generate new set of credentials so that I can download that key. Let me open those things. You can see some access key and secret key inside that file. New set of credentials I'm downloading. Okay, this is my access key. In the first row they have maintained my access key. Second row they have maintained my secret key. Okay, so I'll try to use these things, but in order to access those things, so from my Windows laptop there is a command prompt is there. So you can use this one. Let's say if you want to check whether AWS CLI is installed or not, you can type simply AWS hyphen hyphen version. If you use this one, if you are getting AWS is not recognizable, something like that, means that AWS CLI is not installed on your laptop. So how to install that one? Let me AWS CLI download for Windows. So whatever the softwares that I'm telling daily to install, right? Suppose let's say yesterday I have said to install Putty, Puttigen, something like. Similarly, today you have to download this AWS CLI. So just try to download the softwares on the same day whenever we are discussing, so that finally you'll get all the softwares which are required to complete our course and all. Okay. So installing or updating the latest version of the AWS CLI. Let me open any one of the AWS documentation only, and in that somewhere which is related to Windows laptop. See, Linux, Mac, Windows. So let's select Windows, and inside that you can see there is a .msi file is there. Let's click on that one. It will download some file which is called .msi file, 29 MB. So let it get downloaded. So once it is downloaded, you can right click on that one and then you can open that, or you can show in folder, whatever you want. Let me open that. You can see some run button. So click on run button. Just click on next. Accept the terms and conditions. Let's click on next. Install. So that it will get installed. It will ask the confirmation yes or no. Just you can click on yes. Now you can see finish button. Let's click on finish. So now if I go to my command prompt and if I use AWS hyphen hyphen version command, so let's close this window. So just now we installed, right? So that you have to open the command prompt once again. Already open one, it will still show that AWS command not found. Now you have to type, you have to open a fresh window and type AWS hyphen hyphen version. This time it will show some version. See, AWS CLI 2.5.4. This particular version got installed in your laptop. Okay. So now just you can type how you can work with that AWS CLI. Let's see. There is a command which is called Aws S3 ls. So this command will list the buckets which are presented in my S3 bucket. Suppose let's say I want to see the buckets which are presented in S3. What I will do, I'll go to S3 via UI, and here inside the buckets list, here it will display all the buckets list. Currently we have only one bucket. So if you want to do the same operation via CLI, means this is the command, AWS S3 ls command. So if I hit this command, I think I'll get some exception or something. Let's see. Unable to locate the credentials. So means that you have not provided any credentials. So how it will know that you are owning this AWS account and it should display the buckets which are presented inside this AWS account? you need to pass some credentials, right? You need to log into that account and all. So via browser, you logged in so that you are able to see these things. So via CLI, if you want to see that buckets list and all, means you need to supply some credentials. How to provide those credentials? This is the command. See, you can configure your credentials by running AWS configure command. AWS configure. So then it will ask access key and then secret key. Let me provide my access key which I have created, but I don't want to. So don't copy as it is, just only after this equal is there, right? Access key ID equals to that you have to copy. That's why I have pasted that. Copy and paste it. So then it will ask the secret access key. Okay, this is the access key and this is the secret key or secret access key. So let me copy this content. So then it will ask the default region name. So if you want to work with some specific region, you can provide that one. Let's say US East 1 is my region. If you want, you can provide that. Suppose if you want to work with US East 2, you can simply provide that. And the output, which format you can display. So usually it will be preferable to work with JSON. So you can provide that and click on next. So now my credentials are configured inside my Windows laptop, so that whenever I hit these credentials, whenever I hit some CLI commands, so first it will go and verify my credentials whether I have the proper credentials or not to hit that particular command. If I have the permissions for these secrets so that it can able to access my S3 and to do this operation, then it will display that bucket list. Let me try to hit that AWS S3LS now. It will display the bucket content which are presented. See, there is one bucket is presented. This is the time and date when it is created. So if you want to display AWS S3 LS followed by the bucket name or something is there. But is it required that you have to remember all these commands? It's not required. I think the bucket name, what is the content is there inside the bucket if you want to display, you can provide the command like this. S3 AWS S3 LS followed by S3 colon / bucket name. So that it will display the content which is presented inside S3. See, inside S3, we uploaded two files, right? One is s3.txt and bash11d.ppk. Suppose if I want to download the files from, let's say, the S3 bucket to my laptop, AWS S3. Currently, if you see what are the content is there, so there is a dir command. I'm not able to see any file inside my current location. Dir command will be helpful to display all the files which are presented in C directory users and Sri folder is there. Inside that I am there currently. It will not displaying any s3.txt and bash11d.ppk. Right now, I'm trying to download the content. AWS S3 copy S3 colon the bucket name followed by s3.txt something. This is the file I want to copy from this source location to where is my destination location. Let's say destination will be my current path only. Simply if I provide dot, it will consider or it will download to my current path. Let's see. See now, if I use this previous command dir, it will display my s3.txt file also. Just now it is downloaded. See the timing 7:03. Just now it is downloaded. Sorry, the timing it is showing. I think some North Virginia timing. Maybe uh, the bucket is presented in North Virginia, right? Usually it will show that timing. Maybe it is also showing that particular timing, or there is some mismatch between some timing. But you can see the date and everything looks same, but the file got downloaded just now. Okay. Suppose let's say you have some, now I am deleting my file which is presented in my S3. Let's say this s3.txt I'm planning to delete. So I'll again upload via CLI. Earlier we uploaded via UI, right? But now I'll try to upload via. So now I have deleted my file, right? s3.txt is not there. If you see, only one file I have. So if you want to see that one, the previous command aws s3 ls, if I want to do, here I can see only one file. Okay. So now I am trying to upload this s3.txt. So how to upload? See here, this time reverse. Currently my file is presented in my current path. Okay, s3.txt. This is my file which I am trying to upload to this s3 bucket as this particular name, same s3.txt name. Then my file will get uploaded. Copy command only every time. So now if you go and refresh this window, you can see one file is getting uploaded now. Okay, so this is how you can use cp command, copy command to move your files from your local to uh, S3 bucket, from S3 bucket to here. So this is via Windows laptop how you can install the AWS CLI, and via command prompt you can execute the command. Suppose if you have your Linux command, if you have your Linux server, let me log into my putty. So currently I have logged into my Linux server, and there how you can able to work with that. So here also, whenever you are doing AWS S3 LS, otherwise AWS hyphen hyphen version, just I'm checking whether AWS CLI is installed or not. I think automatically it will get installed some of the latest operating systems and all. If it is not installed, you can use this command. See, command AWS is not found, but you can able to install that with the help of sudo snap install AWS CLI or sudo apt install AWS CLI. Let me execute that command. So before executing that command, let me use sudo apt update. So this command will be helpful whenever you are downloading any packages from the internet with the help of the apt module. Apt is a module which will be helpful to download some packages from the internet in Ubuntu operating systems. Okay, so I'll do update. This will update the packages which are required to work my operating system perfect. Some basic updates and all it is required, it will do that one. So later I can able to use the command to install my AWS CLI. This command sudo apt install AWS CLI. So now it will get installed. Just you can type the confirmation as yes. Why? So in Windows and all, we have to download that .msi file and then you have to install. So here, just you can execute that. You can type that command. So just click on enter, and then it will ask the confirmation yes or no. Just you have to type Y, then it will install that AWS CLI. Let's see. After some time, you can able to see the version of that particular CLI got installed. So we are one more thing. We are configuring some credentials via AWS CLI, right? But where those credentials are storing? By default, those credentials will be stored. Let me go to this PC inside C directory, inside users folder. Let's say I think 3. Yeah, .aws folder will get created. Inside .aws folder, you can see there is a credentials file is there, right? Let me try to open this one. Open with Notepad. Inside that, you can see the credentials which I have uploaded, which I have configured. By default, it will be uploaded to this particular path, .aws. Inside the users path, .aws folder will get created, and inside the credentials file. From here, it is trying to get the credentials, and it will authenticate every time whether we have placed the proper credentials or not. Okay. If we remove the credentials from this location and if we try to access via command prompt, again, it won't work. Okay. So now the installation of the AWS CLI is completed. Let me check AWS hyphen version. So AWS CLI 1.18.69 version got installed. Now you can see AWS S3 ls command. But still you will not get, earlier we are getting some exception saying that AWS command not found, but now we are getting some different exception, unable to locate the credentials. So initially when we are accessing this command in Windows laptop also we got this error, right? Because it doesn't have any credentials actually. So where it will create the credentials? Inside your current path only, it will create a folder called .aws. Currently that folder is not there. Okay, in your Windows laptop, you can see that folder, right? .aws. Similarly, in your Linux also, here you should see one file which is called .aws, but which is not there. So you can use this command, aws configure command. This is the one option so that it will store. Let me first use this one, and I'll tell you another way of configuring the credentials also in Linux. First, let me use this AWS configure. So it will ask the access key and secret key. Let me get those things from Excel. Copy this and get the secret key. And then region will be, let's say, US East one I want to work with. And then output will be JSON format. And now you can see the previous command ls-la, which will be helpful to display all the files in the current path. So one folder will get created, which is called .aws folder. You can go to that folder and you can see if you want cd.aws will be helpful to change the directory. Inside Linux, if you want to go to a particular folder, you have to use cd command. Okay, cd space .aws will be helpful to change the directory. So now I went inside .aws. If you want to see my current path, so I'm there at /home/ubuntu.aws folder. So if I want to see the files which are presented, ls command will be helpful. And here you can see config and credentials. Two files are there. So inside the credentials, access key and secret key will be maintained. Inside the config, these two details, the region name and the output what we have maintained, right? These two details will be maintained inside config, and these two details will be maintained inside the credentials. Let me try to open that file, credentials file. Cat command will be helpful. Cat space some file name will be helpful to open the content of the file. See, I'm able to see this content, means my credentials are stored properly. So now I can use AWS S3 ls command. It will display the buckets list. It won't show any exception saying that unable to locate the credentials or something. It won't display because we have provided proper credentials. So whatever the commands that you are working in Windows earlier, like copy command and all, you can able to do it. Suppose if I want to download that content from AWS S3 bucket to here, that you can download it. Suppose currently in my ls, it is not having any content in the current path. Current where I am, so I'm there at /home/ubuntu path. So there are no files currently. ls means it is displaying nothing. So if I want to download that file, AWS S3 copy S3 colon, and what will be my bucket name? Let's say, let me copy the bucket name slash. What is the object that you want to download? You can keep that object name followed by dot, means to the current path. Let's see, my file will get downloaded, and if I see ls command, this time I can see my file s3.txt. And if you want to open that file, you can see the content of the file like this. Whatever we have placed the content in my notepad, the same thing it is displaying. Earlier we uploaded the same file, right? That is displaying over here. So this is how like you can able to work with some small Linux CLI, S3 CLI commands. But how we can remember all these commands? Is it required that the copy? Just I'm telling some sample commands. But is it required that you have to remember all these things? Means it is not. So because AWS CLI, AWS, they will be providing a complete documentation for that one. So it doesn't require that you have to by heart any command. So let me open AWS CLI document in the browser, and inside that you can see this one. Let me open this document, AWS command line interface first document, and let me click on this HTML. User guide HTML is there. I want to scroll up here. Okay, instead of this one, let me go back. Directly we can come to the page instead of checking and identifying exactly which link. So this one is there, right? Instead of clicking on this link, if you click on this one, it will directly take you to the particular documentation. Let me click on that. See here, all the AWS services documentation will be provided over here. CLI related commands. Suppose let's say I want to work with S3 service, for example. So if you want to create an EC2 instance, instead of creating via console, if you want to create an EC2 instance via programmatically with the help of CLI command, that you can do it. Okay. So you can go to that EC2 and you can find that command. For now, I'll just go to S3. So I think they maintain the documentation in the alphabetical order of that services list. You can go up to S. Yeah. Here you can see S3 is there, right? Let me click on that S3. Inside S3, what options are available that you can achieve with the help of CLI? So you can copy the content, you can move the content, you can remove the content. So like that, you can do a multiple things. You can list the files, okay, ls command. So now let me go and see the copy command. So if you click on that copy related command, all the copy related operations will be displayed. What options are there? Here the parameters, multiple parameters are there inside S3. So we can get some sample commands in this document. In the last, you can see AWS S3 copy followed by, let's say, some file which is presented in my local. Just I want to upload to this S3 bucket with some different name instead of text.txt. So I want to put that as text2.txt. That will rename and it will upload that file. So like that, maybe one file which is presented in S3 bucket, and I want to move to some other S3 bucket. That is also possible. See, some other S3 bucket I want to move. The file which is presented in one S3 bucket, which is called my bucket, is my bucket name. So the file content is text.txt. So maybe in the same bucket, I want to rename the object. This will possible. But if you want to move this one to some other bucket, that is also possible. Like that, you can get the commands, multiple commands, which will be CLI commands, which will be helpful to do the operation. So the operations, whatever we are doing, let's say I'm creating an IAM user. The same things that you can achieve with the help of AWS CLI also, but usually in the organizations, they will use via console only. But some S3 one, majorly they'll prefer to use CLI. Only the S3 service and all, they will prefer to use some CLI sometimes. That is also, if it is some bulk amount of data that they want to do copy, move kind of operation, at the time they will use the CLI instead of console. So that's why I covered that part. So now one more thing which is pending I want to discuss is, suppose currently from this EC2 instance or from this EC2 server, I am accessing the content which is presented in S3. So via PuTTY, we are connected to that server, right? So this is our server which we have connected, and then we are accessing our content. Why? Because there is a file is there, ls-la. Let me, ls-la means there is a file, credentials file which is presented inside my .aws. So that's why I am able to access my S3 content. Suppose if I delete .aws folder completely. Now if you see AWS S3 ls command, this time we will not get. So now we will get again, yeah, unable to locate the credentials. So then how you can able to uh, set the credentials? Again, you have to use the AWS configure command to set the credentials. Once you use that AWS configure command, .aws folder will get created, and inside that your credentials will be saved. So this is the one way of accessing the S3 bucket from EC2 server. So it means that you are configuring your access key and secret key directly inside your AWS server, but it is not a recommended way. Suppose if it is your laptop, Windows laptop and all, you can do that part. But AWS, they are not recommending to configure the credentials directly inside, because it is storing the credentials inside my server, right? Maybe if sometimes AWS server may hack, maybe if you are not properly following the security standard, if your server got compromised and if it is hacked, then someone may get that access key and secret key so that they can able to misuse. Suppose if anyone knows my username and password, they can able to log into my AWS account. Sorry, they can able to log into my AWS account and they can create the servers and all, right? Similarly, if anyone knows my access key and secret key, via programmatically, they can able to launch the servers and they can able to misuse my AWS account. So that's why they will not recommend us to use that credentials inside the server. Just you can able to do that one. Just I'm telling it is not recommended. So then how I can able to access my S3 bucket from my EC2 server? There is one more way is there. So for that purpose, you have to create an IAM role inside your IAM service. There is a roles concept is there that we have not discussed in IAM. So now we will discuss that one. So AWS IAM role is nothing but so that we are going to create for a particular AWS service. Suppose let's say if any human user, let's say a human user, if he want to access my AWS account and AWS resources, means what I will do, I will create an IAM user and I'll share the username and password so that he can able to work. But if it is not a human user, maybe my application means my server. So let's say one of the Java application I have deployed on my server. So it may be interact with S3. Some content is there in S3 and it needs to read the content or it needs to upload some content to S3. Means that my EC2 server wants to interact with the S3 service, right? Here my EC2 server needs to interact with S3. So that my EC2 server needs to have the sufficient permission to interact with this S3. Suppose this human user is interacting with S3 service, means we are creating an IAM user and we are granting some permissions. We are granting that sufficient S3 policies to this IAM user. Then only he can able to access. Similarly, my Java application or my EC2 server needs to interact with my S3. Means that here we are not doing any human user is not doing any operation, automatically my Java application, my program will needs to interact with S3. So at the time the IAM user will not be a best practice. Means that creating an IAM user, configuring that access key and secret key inside the server, that will work, but that is not a recommended way will suggest by AWS. Then at the time you can create an IAM role for EC2 service. Suppose currently my EC2 server wants to interact with S3, right? So then you have to create an IAM role for your EC2, and then you have to grant S3 related policy. S3 related policy. You can attach that S3 related policy to this IAM role which you have created. So earlier we created some users and we attached some policies to that one, right? Suppose let's say S3 full access. This is one policy. Let's say S3 read only access. Something like this, some policies we attach so that that particular user will get the required permissions. Similarly, here I am creating a role. For that role also I can attach some policies whichever it is required. So now let me create a role first. Let's create a role. And here multiple services. So you can create a role for your AWS service, for your AWS account. AWS account is nothing but for some other person. If you want to, you don't want to create an IAM user inside your AWS account, so they have some separate account. From their account on, they can able to access my services, my resources, which is presented in my AWS account. So with the help of this role. but now I'm not discussing that concept. So now my AWS service, one of the AWS service, what that service is, EC2 service. For example, EC2 service, it needs to interact with S3. So I'm creating the IAM role for my EC2. Let's select that one. Click on next. Here I need to attach some policies which I want, which my role needs to be attached. Suppose S3 full access. Let me search some policy which is related to that, and I'm attaching that policy. Amazon S3 full access I am attaching. Let me click on next. And here you have to provide your role name, what it should be. Let's say batch 11D S3 full access, something like that. I'm creating a role. So here I'm just creating a role. So simply, if you create a role, it won't work, right? So you have to link this IAM role with your EC2 service. So while creating the server, there is a third. Let me go and create one server. I'm not creating, just I'll show the option where you can configure that IAM role if you are creating newly. So in the third step, you can see that IAM role option. In the third step, you can see an IAM role. So at the time, you can able to configure. So currently I created an IAM role for batch 11D S3 full access. See, this is the one just now we created. You can configure, you can select that one. So that automatically my EC2 service, without any credentials configuration, it can able to access the S3 related things. Okay, if you have this policy. So if you are creating a new server, in the third step where you can configure that IAM role. So currently my server is already created. So, and if you check the details of that server, the IAM role will not be attached. Somewhere you can see the IAM role option is empty. So how you can attach that one? Just select your server, go to actions, and somewhere we can attach that one. Let me check. Working security. Yeah. So under security, you can see modify IAM role is there. Let me click on that one. So I have not configured any IAM role for my server. Now here you can search for that particular role name, what you want to attach. Let's say batch 11 D S3 full access. This is the one which I have created now. Let me select that particular one and click on save. Once I click on save, I'm not configured any credentials. Earlier, I'm getting this error, right? AWS S3 LS means unable to locate the credentials and all. Now, the same command, AWS S3 LS, if you see, I'm able to see my bucket name. Means that there are some credentials are configured in the background. Okay. But if you go and verify, you don't see any AWS folder and you don't see any credentials, but it will work just displaying that buckets, displaying the content, uploading some content, copying, everything you can do it. Okay, because you have granted S3 full access. For that particular IAM role, we have granted the permissions is under permissions, you can see S3 full access we have granted. So that my EC2 service, my EC2 server, this server can do whatever he wants inside my S3 service. Similarly, maybe it needs to do some other operation so that you can able to add that policies, add permissions, attach policies. Suppose let's say I want to do some EC2 related actions only, EC2 full access, so that I can create some other servers from my EC2 service. I can delete the existing servers. So like that, multiple things I can do, but I have to form that CLI command and then I can do those operations. Yeah, this is the part that I want to discuss. So where we can create an IAM role and we can attach that IAM role to our EC2 instance so that without configuring any credentials or without hard coding any credentials inside my server, I can able to access that particular IAM role, whatever the permissions it is configured, whatever the permissions it is given for that IAM role, that will work seamlessly. Okay.
Thank you. Please like, share, and subscribe.